I'm Joseph Gallo here at Poli-Sci department here at North Carolina Central University. Several students here to talk about gun violence and how it has impacted them, not just here at the university, but here and throughout Durham.
This quilt is a physical reminder of just how many people are impacted by gun violence in the city of Durham. It was put on display outside the rally at McDougal Terrace today. It features the name of every person murdered in Durham since 1994. Sidney Brody created the quilt and sold on every square. He says most of the 882 victims are black men.
Yeah, I got quite a few people I know on this quilt. I got some family on the quilt, friends, old classmates, and it's a cross-section of my life here.
And Brody said,
and I'll have everybody do a quick introduction of themselves as we pass this around. Maria?
So I'm Maria McCray. I am a senior here at NCCU.
Dory King. I am a senior double major here at NCCU.
I'm Kira Costin, and I'm a junior at the Early College. I'm Jahar Anderson. I'm a junior at the Early College program here at NCCU.
I'm Valerie Nieto, and I'm an Early College student as a junior.
Well, I'll just kick this off, and this will be kind of an open discussion in general. And please feel free to just to start talking about experience and stuff like that. But I really want to start with how has gun violence personally impacted any of you here? Not just like I said at Durham, or not just at Central, but out here in Durham in general as well, or even outside of that. If any of you have any personal stories to share about any of that, I would greatly like to hear that.
Anybody? I'll start off.
Okay.
Okay, so I was born in Miami, and I grew up with gun violence. My first memory of a gun is my father jumping on my mother, putting a gun in her mouth, telling me to kill her. My second memory of a gun was my uncle putting a man in the trunk in Miami broad daylight and pumping it full of holes before he went away for his first bid. So I was born into gun violence, it was normal. And that scares me as a father of 3 young boys. So when I left New York, I could remember going to sleep to gunshots there. So I did everything to put them in a safe environment, not around guns. Not that I'm anti-gun, because I'm a gun owner, but the level of safety, being in that armed combat type environment, seeing what we see on the news of constant shooting, not being able to handle our differences, scares me as a elder statesman, so to speak, representing the community, because I wanted my sons not to be what I grew up in, and I want it better for the community. So when I see this I don't say it's an endless cycle, but not knowing that there's going to be a tomorrow, especially as a person of color, just really makes it hard to just feel free and attempt to grow. But that's my personal view on it.
From so far this year, and people in the community, they're fed up and demanding that more be done to curb gun violence.
As CBS 17's Mackenzie Stasko reports, activists and neighbors in the McDougall Terrace community rallied through the streets today to get their message out.
Their message is simple.
Stop killing us!
But getting it to stick is a challenge.
In McDougall Terrace, there was a shooting while we were planning for this event.
Since January, Durham police have responded to at least 291 shootings. 91 people have been shot. 17 of them have died.
We're losing a lot of kids to the streets. We really are, and it is the saddest thing ever.
Residents and activists marched up and down the streets near McDougall Terrace, calling on neighbors to come out and join them.
So awareness is the first place that we must start.
Collaborating on solutions is the second. They had an open mic for people to speak freely and invited elected officials to come by and listen.
Show unity with people that as an elected official, I'm no different than they are.
The city council approved close to $1 million to hire 18 people called violence interrupters. They help prevent shootings in troubled neighborhoods. But it's been about 6 months and no one has been hired. Community activists have other ideas.
We need jobs. We need jobs, skill trades, mentoring programs.
We can make sure our children are being educated rather than pushed out into the streets.
They plan to keep pushing their message by holding more rallies.
We're trying to show people that we can come together and be one and have a good time, be no shooting, no violence.
Around them is death and dilapidation, and today this is a start, and we got to continue to make these repeats and starts a normal, a social norm.
In Durham, Mackenzie Stasko, CB.
So to me as a parent, like I'm anti-gun. We're not gun owners. We don't, I've never shot a gun before in my life, but I am the daughter of people in the military, so we've seen them. But I'm anti-guns, and I feel like that's one of the biggest issues is the availability of weapons. And so all the guns that are on the street that are not registered and not accounted for, and these are young people, and they're not capable of making rational decisions, and they're impulsive, and they have too much access to weapons where other conflicts may have been solved with fighting back in the day. Now everybody grabs a gun because they happen to have them. And I don't think that's always been the case, but right now there's guns everywhere.
Well, if I could just follow that up, I think we have to find a balance, because truly we're never going to get rid of all guns in the world. There's no mythical Superman going to pull all the guns like he did the nukes in that old movie. But I think really what guns are capable of, because I think we glamorize it with like Grand Theft Auto and these videos, it's not real. I think I always equate it to a young person learning about sex. We can't pretend that, abstinence only and all these other things that they try to do with sex, because people are to be people.
Yeah.
But we got this area where kids weren't allowed to go outside if they're gonna have a fight.
Yeah.
We're talking out. Yeah, right. So it's just not real. So I think awareness, education, because that was part of our culture in America in the 50s and 60s. They had education programs in the public school system, because it's not real. And one, they don't know how to fight. Two, you don't know how to lose. You know what I'm saying? Your rep means so much, but you don't realize killing somebody, shooting them, injuring, what it actually does to your rep as a human, as a person in society.
Yeah.
And your future, what it does. I've been shot. I remember, you know what I'm saying? And it's nothing like a badge of honor. All that stuff about rappers saying, I've been shot. It's nothing, if you could get rid of it, you don't want that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no one should want to hurt another person like that. I understand war and all that, but I think we just have to build an awareness. I think education, hey, this is actually what a gun does. Whether it's a side of beef, melons, or whatever, oh, it's cool, but the trauma it causes. Because if you look at third world where war is conflicts, people are aware of the damage of guns.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the exposure is where we really need to go, instead of just trying to
if any of you wanted to share anything about personal experiences you've had with gun violence, or friends that have had experience with gun violence out and around in the world, or just your general opinion on the gun violence going on in Durham, any of that.
I would say I'm not directly a victim of gun violence, but I can see how it can traumatize people. My grandma hasn't been able to go to shopping malls or movie theaters because she had a horrible experience. It was a kid, he had got access to his dad's gun and just started shooting, going off randomly. So I directly see how it can traumatize people.
I'm sorry to hear that. You know, I think most of us, I don't know if all of us in this room, was around about 2 semesters ago when we had a shooting in the parking deck not too far from here. And I remember how much of an impact that had on everyone on campus, and it sparked this major debate about safety on campus. Were all of you here for when that happened? I don't know if some of you might not have been, because you probably were.
A breaking news update to a story that many of you might have seen last night. 2 people are now dead after a shooting at North Carolina Central University in Durham. Please tell us that they are not students, those victims.
Yeah, however, police have not yet released the information, or have not released the identities of those victims. But we do know that the shooting happened around 9 o'clock last night in a parking lot next to the college's parking deck near East Lawson and Lincoln Streets. And NC Central was in the middle of its football game nearby, so police locked down the stadium to keep fans safe. Many fans say that they were not able to get to their cars until around 11:30. And students attending the game say that they were shocked by this deadly shooting.
I will say it was unsafe.
First game of the year.
Right.
So yeah.
Didn't expect this to happen.
First home game of the year, sorry.
Right.
Definitely a first. Never heard of an active police situation while we were at the game.
Now, as of right now, again, no arrests have been made.
Breaking news right now in Durham.
We have learned 2 people have been shot near North Carolina Central University's campus.
Lillian Donahue is there right now. And Lillian, what's going on where you are?
Well, good evening. Earlier, I was showing you crowds of people waiting to get in. You can see behind me, these dozens and dozens of people are finally able to go back into this parking garage here on Lincoln and Lawson. This is where police have been centralized for a long time tonight, many hours, and police have been working this scene while people have been waiting anxiously to get back into the parking garage. Again, repeating what we already have confirmed by the Durham Police Department, 2 people shot. We do not know their conditions just yet. We know that it was reported around 9:10 p.m. here on Lawson Street. And people were coming from the NCCU football game. They were held in place there for a little while until they were out on the street. But now people are allowed to go back into this parking garage. Again, we don't know the condition of those 2 people that are shot. We will keep you updated here on air and online. There's also another paramedic situation here, so we're also going to...
It's, I remember it was the first game back from COVID. I wasn't there, but that parking deck is literally where my car is parked right now. And I remember thinking, you know, if I had just been leaving class a little later, you know, I might have been involved in that shooting, just, you know, being out in the world. And, you know, as somebody who has a very different experience with guns, you know, growing up around, you know, my father's ex-military, ex-police officer, and guns are much more viewed as in a positive light, and I haven't had those negative experiences with, you know, using guns in a way to commit violence against others, more as a way of self-defense. And having since stepped on this campus, it's very interesting to see the different experiences that I have, given, you know, being raised in the white community where guns are treated as very different implements, versus in other communities where they're used as tools of survival, as a way to, you know, feed your families and things like that, and also to resolve conflicts in, you know, extremely violent ways. But on the point of coming back from that football game, you know, there was a big question of should we open up or close campus, because, you know, letting people into the community, and it questions the role that Central has, right, as being involved in the community. But if the community itself is entrenched in this violence, this proliferation of guns, it becomes a threat to all of us here. You know, I wouldn't want to see anybody in this room, you know, catch a bullet for no reason just because they were trying to become a student here or already a student here. And how I mean, we have 2 parents here. I can't even imagine if if it was my child just coming here, going to class, and they just catch a stray round, you know. But I think when we start to talk about these like highly publicized attacks, issues, you know, instances of gang violence, I think we got to start talking about solutions, right? And that's really my question: is how do you guys conceive of gun violence as an issue in terms of it being solved, if it can be solved? Or, you know, what do you think, you know, public administrators and you know, legislators should be doing to address gun violence in not just in Durham, but, you know, throughout the state and multiple counties?
Well, I think, like they said, awareness is a key factor, because if someone's aware of something and how dangerous it is, I don't think they would want to commit any sorts of acts with like a gun or whatever, because unless it's affect them personally, which probably some hasn't, so that's why they use it. But also, because access effects, like, plays a part in why kids are able to use it, because they have access, whether that's from them buying it illegally or getting it other places in their house somewhere. They have resources. They have the ability to get a gun and use it. As for solutions, I think that if we administer like more rules on how we can get it, maybe set like charges, or like not charges, but like if you apply if you charge how much you spend to buy it, you know, economically, or just set more rules, then maybe that could help.
Yeah, that's a great point, sister. Going back to the thing that you said about awareness, but I don't think it's just about the violence. I don't think, going back to what you said, when you said that how we open or close campus with a community, I think that's the problem. That creates an us versus them. And I think we're so disconnected from people. You know, like I walk around here, everybody's got their earbuds in, right? And I purposely say, good morning, sister, hello, brother, right here. But people are here with their phone, or they're here, if you don't remember. So we're not, if you walk here in a community, whether it's on campus or right at the border, we're not circulating with one another. We don't have our humanness. You know what I'm saying?
Cultural thing.
Right, but that's the problem, is we're disenfranchised from one another. So if we respected one another on a daily basis, it would be hard for someone to pull a gun really on somebody, have that cold-heartedness. Because at the end of the day, we're all flesh and blood. You know, blue, red, black, white, that it really doesn't come into play once you see the humanity in person. But I think, going back to that, I was here for that, the shooting incident, you can't just close down campus. And you can't just go spend thousands of dollars on this spot shotter program. That's a reactionary thing, okay? And I find a personal invasion of cameras and things everywhere. That doesn't solve anything. It feeds that prison a pipeline program, which is not what we want. What we want to do, okay, and I'll start here with the police here on campus. In that situation, what I am aware of is they reduce money for presence in games because it's a line item in the budget. They spent money elsewhere. So, not saying we need to have police everywhere, but coming from Florida, if there's a high school football and college football, police are everywhere with their lights on. So they're just like, okay, we're not gonna fool around here because there's police everywhere protecting you. You feel safe. Not that police should make you feel safe, but people might just pause before they do something like that instead of just not caring. So I think the school has a responsibility to be of the community. How much outreach and engagement are we doing there? And to express our humanity and respect other people's humanity, whether it's across the street, 2 blocks over, or to Hayti. And we don't gotta walk 3 blocks before we see some real despair, but they're still human.
Across the streets.
Well, I'm saying if you go like 1, 2 more blocks, it just gets, you know, worse.
Yeah.
But I think we look for people to respect us and our views, but I think we have to respect our community. I think it starts there.
Yeah, I think there was something interesting about the police presence, right? Durham is one of the few cities in the country that's really in the post-Floyd era really trying to do alternatives to policing with their community safety board doing these teams of like paramedics and mental health specialists that are trying to reduce the load on police and reduce potential violence between police officers and people that are having mental health crises. And one of the things I hear constantly, particularly from police forces and particularly here in Durham, is we need more. And I specifically think about that shooting incident in the parking deck, because I can't conceive of a way of when more police would have solved that shooting. The only thing that I can think of that would have prevented that shooting is those young men that ended up unfortunately, I think one person ended up dying, or was it one or two? I forget.
I believe it was one.
Yeah, one person, that young man. It was a young man too.
Technically, it's one physical casualty,
and then the other man went to jail for you.
So
actually, the trial's going on right now.
Yeah,
actually.
so the lives are ruined across the board.
I gotta ask the question, why are those young men not in the early college year? Why are they not?
And that's where it is, and that's where we have to build that bridge, because the culture changes.
Like, community's gotta come first before we do anything.
Right, and that's the thing is, it's not about more militarism, more police, And I personally don't believe that if you're not a police officer who lives in the community, you shouldn't be employed by the community, because those dollars go outside. You become a military force occupying. That is no different than Afghanistan or Iraq. Right? Because then if you have your police officer in the community, maybe, your grandma can say, hey, that knucklehead Timmy over there, go get him. Because people would talk. So, you know what I'm saying? But I'd like to hear your opinion, sister, because I really haven't heard you. Like, I know you have an opinion, you have a spirit about you, kindness. So tell us what you see, you experience.
Okay, so a few years back, I lived in a neighborhood where you could hear shootings happen every night, or almost every day, yes. And there was this one time where there was a bullet that came through my room, and it almost hit me in the head. And at that point, I really started to think about if gun violence was really an issue, because I was a little bit younger at that time, and I think I just started Google searching about gun violence and how it has become bigger throughout this year. If you see the news, it's happening everywhere, in the US especially. And I just think that there should be regulations for it, about the age restrictions and stuff like that to purchase a gun. And I think people, as you said, people should communicate more and understand each other better so that it won't be as big as it is right now.
Thank you very much for that. Glad you're here. Share your story.
I think one thing that strikes me and usually gives me a smile on my face when I'm walking back to that parking deck where I usually park, is that playground. When I see kids playing on that playground, and I like to believe that this is a safe environment for those kids to grow up and be around, and they don't have to worry about all the other nonsense going on around them. And I can't help but think, why is Central not putting more emphasis on growing into the community in that way specifically, right? And not focusing on creating a elementary to middle school to high school to college pipeline, given that we're such an institution in this community. I walk around, I was at the hospital yesterday with my mother, I was wearing my hoodie, and I had 3 people just kind of yeah, Eagle Sword, all this other stuff, right? And it's we are a known entity that people love and want to be a part of, but I just feel like you mentioned, Dory,
this is a business.
Yeah, and that's
there's the problem, and I will answer everything you just said. And I love my HBC. I've gone to PWIs, right? I come from 2 very rich states in New York and Florida, Miami and New York. I love this place more. I feel like I could put some deep roots here. I want to stay here. When I first got here, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And she and I have been talking for 2 years. We're going to Yale, Harvard, whatever. And it's just grown on me with a warm love. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I just had an interview with Yale a few weeks ago. They told me I think I want to stay here. I just want to stay local, go to grad school and law school.
I feel the same.
And I want to be of the community. But it's because of the love that I got here at Central that makes me want to hold it into account. And I'm going to say leadership has failed. They require these volunteer hours in our service to graduate. But where is our leadership? If we don't need to go with this project or this project, let's just walk the neighborhood. Chancellor, lead us out in the street. Let's go to the neighborhood. Hey, how can we help you? Don't show up like a politician because you want us to support the community here for this, but go knock on the, hey, let's take a team, administration, faculty, kids, let's go cut these people's lawn. Let's go pick up garbage here in the neighborhood. Hey, how can we beautify our community? Hey, I'm Dory King, you know, I'm in the poli-sci department. Let's talk politics. Hey, do you need help, you know, fill out a form? Do you need somebody to run and get your medicine, you know, a senior citizen? What about just taking maybe some food or some snacks to the people in the community to serve them? Be of the community in your spirit and your actions, not just to get donations and build a big business, because that's what it used to be here when Shepard founded it. When he founded this, there was an opera house here, there was hotels here, there was business. It was real love, and that's why I was here. And then the government killed it, and we've been focused on being part and assimilating. We've lost that culture, and we need to get that back. That culture of being of the community was lost, and we need to get it back.
And I think all of that is in service to, you know, trying to reduce because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if you turn on any of the local news channels here, every 2 or 3 stories is about a shooting, right? And I think that there are alternative solutions to this that can be from this college. I don't know about you guys, but like for me, I mean, I think Central as a community is a very close community, like tight-knit community in each individual department, even as a school. You know, when something major happens, we come together, right? And I think that is a force for good that can be used to help alleviate some pressures that necessarily local government is having struggles containing or can't contain because of institutional constraints, you know, lack of funding, things like that. And I think those are really not being explored, not just here, but I think throughout the country, that how, not just HBCUs, but I think colleges in general can really be institutions of community growth and helping, like I said, relieve that pressure valve on some of the institutional boundaries that local governments have.
So, you ladies, your grandma, your personal experience with gun violence, how did that get addressed? Whether it's your grandma or you, did she have therapy? Did you go see somebody about it? Did you talk about it with your family or your friends? Did anybody else share like experiences? Somebody who, you know, did the violence, you know, a shooter. How was it handled with that individual? And do you think you have a different solution to deal with the gun violence in your respective communities?
I wouldn't say my situation, well, not my grandmother's, I don't think her situation was ever solved or anything. I didn't get the story from her. I had to get it from my mom, because I remember it was my 13th birthday. I was like, Grandma, can I please go to the mall, shop, spend some money? And she had got really angry, and I was like, it was out of nowhere, because me and my grandma are really close, and I never get yelled at by her. And so I was talking to my mom, and she was just telling me the story. And then after that, I remember I went and talked to my grandma, and I remember that was one of our first really heart-to-heart moments. We told each other a lot of things that we haven't before, and I think that brought us together. So now, as I'm getting older, she's starting to tell me more things. But at the end of the day, I can tell she's still traumatized from that.
So she never was able to actually deal with the anxiety that came with that violence. And that's the thing, is we got to be able to speak about our experiences. What about you?
So after everything happened, I called the police since nobody was home at that time, so I was alone. And I had called the police. They came, but they didn't find like the shooter, and just said that the gun was like shot in the woods or something, and just came to my house somehow. And for me, I didn't do anything about it. I just talked to my family about it, just explained to them what happened, and then from there I just didn't do anything for myself.
Upset and frustrated with the amount of gun violence happening in their community. I mean, just one woman I spoke to, tears were streaming down her face, obviously upset and just really wants what's best for her neighborhood. These flowers and the leftover crime scene tape are all what's left of Sunday night's shooting on North Briggs Avenue in Durham. The victim, a man in his mid-20s, shot to death.
You know, it messed me up. I'm still messed up from it.
And it happened just feet away from this man's bedroom window. He woke up late last night after hearing some people talking outside.
I saw the body laying down. I said, that's somebody's son, or somebody's uncle, or somebody's nephew. I know he was young. He could have been my kid.
And with a lot of life left to live, this shooting, along with a late-night weekend shooting on I-885 near Ellis Road that left a man dead, is affecting the community and those who call the Bull City home.
We're still going through a pandemic, and it's affecting everybody differently based on economics.
The Durham County Sheriff says 31-year-old Jamar Parker was shot and killed while driving on 885. The passenger with him not hurt. And tonight, residents want answers.
I mean, I don't know that it's shot spotter. I don't know that's another reactionary tool, but I don't know if it's going to be helpful for what they think it's going to be helpful for.
Durham City Council recently approving Shot Spotter, but it's yet to be installed.
Who's going to come? We don't have enough officers. We don't have enough dispatch. The staffing levels are low.
Only time will tell.
It seems like there's not aftercare. So like the people who are involved in the situation who aren't a direct victim or an offender, you have no services afterwards. So like if you're the one in the house when your parents get shot, there's no services for that child. You know, being in a movie theater that was shot up for your grandma, she didn't get services. So like that aftercare for everyone who's affected is important, and it seems like there's not a focus on that in the community, especially not with the police department. Like there is no real focus.
All right, well, I think we hit a lot of really good points here. A lot of different solutions got talked about, and I really want to appreciate everyone sharing their personal stories. It's hard to express when trauma happens, especially in marginalized communities, to talk about it in a really open and honest way. And these stories don't get told, not on a national scale. And often when they do, it's after the tragic death happens, right? Not a near miss or all these other stories that people have to go through and they're never addressed. Like I said, it's always after the violence. And I think this is a really tough issue that a lot of people have to deal with. And I don't know if there's a solution in our horizon given the political landscape, but I think having the conversation is the most important part. So I am Joseph Gowell, and this has been the Gun Violence Roundtable here at North Carolina.